Zero rubbed his eyes and sat up from the narrow sleeping wall. In the studio, the server emits a low buzzing sound, and the data screen lights up in the gray space like a row of flashing lights. In 2242, from the underground, the city seems to be moving in the darkness. He glanced at the clock on the wall, and a little tiredness came up. It was a new day and another business. He pulled open the hidden panel, his fingertips lightly, and the virtual interface spread out in the air, and a blue light swept across his eyes to confirm his identity. The customer file pops up. This time it is a middle-aged man who wants to delete a fragment of a failed marriage. Zero took a deep breath and operated like brushing his teeth. He plugged the memory connection into the computer interface, and the data flowed into his nerves, like a stream of water flowing slowly. A clip of a customer appears in the projection, a hug, a quarrel, and then an empty room. He swept over quickly, and with a swipe of his hand, he cut the pieces into useless codes. "Do it," he said softly, transferring the money to the account. The transaction ended and everything was smooth, but he always felt that there was a hole in his heart, and technology made things simple, making people feel like something that was lost. On the street, neon lights twisted in the rain, the dark alleys in Xinjing City were like live snakes, and the advertising screen reflected moist. Zero pulled up his coat and beat the crowd. He likes the noise at night, which can hold the noise in his brain. An encrypted message popped into his implanted communication device and showed, "Location, old code area." He accelerated his pace and his brain flashed through a warning. In this city, every business may have a trap. Lily stood in the shadow, her figure blurred under the neon light. She held a small chip in her hand, looking straight at Zero. "This memory is worth a lot of money, but it will cause trouble. Do you dare to untie it?" Her voice was steady and anxious. Zero stopped and looked her up and down. She is not like other customers, with a determined look, and he doesn't see it often. "Memory is data. I only care about money. Say, where's the encryption?" He responded, his voice cold, but curious in his head. Huge remuneration represents risk. Should he refuse? Or can this time make life less boring? She released the chip. "There are 3 layers of encryption, and you need this brush. You can get half the money when you untie it." Zero took it and felt like the heavy stone. He scanned and projected a series of criterion. "Okay, I'll take it. But if you cheat, I'll give you more." They didn't say much, but he noticed the smile on the corner of her mouth and thought to himself, "Why is this woman taking risks? Is it money, or something else?" Back in the studio, Zero inserted the chip into the main device. The room projection opened, and a virtual field emerged, green grasslands, birds flying in the air, completely different from the surrounding steel walls. He put on his sensory helmet and data flowed into his brain. The memory is like a dream, full of birds and flowers, mixed with vague fragments. Was it his childhood? A face hole under the sun. He was stunned and his fingers stopped in the air. Technology is a tool. Why did he feel vulnerable this time? Lily's communication device came up. "What did you see?" "The memory is hidden." Zero didn't reply, and the question scattered in his heart. This technology can repair wounds and may also destroy yourself. He took a deep breath, turned off the projection, clamped his fist and waited for the next step. Zero straightened his back and stood up from the studio seat. In the midnight Xinjing City, the fog on the street was coming from the underground floor. He pushed the door open and walked into the outside world with his backpack on his back. The machine was still buzzing around his ears, but he didn't want to stay in the narrow room anymore, which felt like a trap. He pulled up his coat, covered his face, and advanced along the sidewalk. The surrounding floating car was flashing like a river, and the lights pulled out long shadows in the fog. The chip was held in the palm of his hand, his fingers touched it lightly, and started to understand the locking procedure, and a blue light spread out from his palm, like a ghost strapping with his body. "System, why is it stuck again?" Zero low-sounding curse. He speeded up his pace and turned into a darker alley where there were fewer projection advertisements, so he could operate it carefully. The virtual interface floated in the air, and he slid his fingers over the light point, trying to have a stable code. But the police jumped out. the red symbol flashing in front of him, and the sound was as harsh as a siren's. He looked around and there were only a few pedestrians hurriedly passing by in the alley. He felt something was wrong, as if the city's monitoring network was following him. Zero gritted his teeth and speeded up his hand, dragging a string of codes to one side. This is not a casual matter, he said to himself, and there is always a problem. The surrounding fog became even more heavy. He leaned against the wall and took a few deep breaths. Technology originally wanted to make everything simple, but now it is like a stalking thing. He thought, if every step is so cumbersome, what else should it do? Unlocking the progress bar and moving forward slowly, but he knew that interference was not an accident. Zero glanced at the light on his hands and the image began to blur, showing fragments of forests and rivers, like something that was rolled out from his memory. He slammed his head, forced himself to concentrate, and switched to the encrypted communications device. The virtual space immediately opened, and the surroundings turned into a group of digital fogs. He felt that he was being pulled into another world, and the blue light floated in front of his eyes. Lily, I'm outside, the chip's interference is even more serious. It's not a coincidence, right? Zero's voice was low, and he leaned against the wall and projected it in front of her. Her figure was blurred, like a shadow in a fog, her eyes flashing in the light. Why don't you stay where you are? It's too dangerous outside. She responded, her voice rushing, and the image swayed for a moment, as if hiding something. This interference is the protection layer of the system. If you want to stop, just stop. Zero raised his eyebrows, and his fingers hit the virtual light point, trying to pull out more information. Stop? What about the good business we are talking about? You'd better tell me what's hidden in this. I don't want to be pulled into a bigger mess. In the alley, a floating car called out, bringing a wind, and his projection swayed slightly. He was in a state of turmoil. This city should have been progressive. Technology has connected people and made him feel even more alone. If the chip can control the memory, then is he still himself? I'm not playing, Zero. This is more than money. Lily stepped closer to the projection, and the mist scattered, revealing a blurred face behind her. The interference is to prevent outsiders, but you have the ability to deal with it. If you continue, we can all get the answer. Her words pierced into his brain like a slight. He thought that this technology could change everything and might destroy people. He pointed, okay, I'll give you time, but don't hide anything next time. The virtual space began to fade, and he turned off the interface, feeling that it actually pulled back. Outside the alley, the noise of the city was approaching. Zero stood straight, held the chip tightly, and walked forward along the street. The next step is under the feet. Zero opened the studio door, and the door opened with a light click. The blue light quickly swept over him, holding the smoke from the outside. He walked into the narrow room, and the screen flashed and the machine buzzed, like a crawling in the darkness. He put his backpack onto the table, and the wafer was still in his hand. This place looks like a small iron box, but he knew it would be at least a little tricky here. He took a deep breath, the air smelled of metal, and then plugged the chip into the quantum decryptor. The device lights up, and a light line shoots out from the head, pulling out a detailed line in the air. System, start scanning. Zero said, his fingers quickly slid across the stage, and the virtual interface emerged like a thin fog. The encryption layers collapsed one after another, looking like digital walls shattering, and blurry clips popped up in the picture, a small forest of trees, a river flashing under the sun. He stared at the images, his hands tightly holding them unconsciously. The sound of the machine became louder, and he thought to himself that this thing should have been a helper, but it always seemed like something that could bite people. What exactly is these memories hidden, Lily? Zero question, the voice was a little impatient. The projection began to take shape, and her figure walked out of the fog, her eyes flashing under the light, like street lights. I used to lose all my memories, Zero. This chip is the thread to get back the truth, but it may also drag us into more trouble. She said, the sound was exhausted, the image swayed slightly, like a shadow blowing by the wind. She raised her hand and poked her finger at a string of codes, rearranged it. Please focus, the system is still trying to calm down. At 0 point, speed up the action, pulling a block of interference modules to one side. At this time, a strange noise came from outside. He glanced at the door and felt that the city monitoring network was surrounding like a spider network. It wasn't the first time he noticed this, but today it made him even more anxious. Unlock the progress bar and climb up slowly, the projection becomes a messy digital mystery. The moment clip not only ran on the screen, but also ran to his senses. He heard a blurry smile, and an icy feeling climbed onto his skin. The police suddenly rose and the room was filled with red light. Mom, this is coming to me. He cursed and planned the air through the air, and separated the invasion program. In his heart, he thought that technology is always like the fog of this city, blurring my own shadow. If I can change my memory, am I still me? This thought made him pause, but he didn't have time to think about it. Lily's projection approached, her expression softened. I didn't care about you, 0. The chips are from the experience of the founding group. They wanted to rewrite it, but they messed up. My memory is just a proof. She paused, and the image shook. You've handled it well. Then why didn't you say it earlier? This matter is not only about money, right? 0 Jue asked, his eyes still staring at the screen. He felt her words bring warmth, but also reminded himself that this might be just another trap. He pulled out more information, and a series of hidden programs jumped out, showing the group's secrets, records of failed memory transplants, and how the city followed everyone. At this time, his communications vibrated, and a flash of unknown messages appeared. They are following you. His heart was beating, which was a new threat, from the group minions of the outside world. I need your help, 0. Lily said in a low voice, we are all alone, but we may be able to make some changes when we work together. Her words made him feel moved. Why does technology always give people this choice? It can repair things, but it also makes people more empty. He quickly entered the command, locked the system, and the red light slowly faded. The decryptor emits a steady sound, and the memory clip is finally fixed on the screen. An incomplete video shows a vague face, which may be the victim of the experiment. We'll untie it first. 0 said, his shoulders slightly relaxed, but his fingers still stopped on the interface. He glanced at the door, and the smoke was waiting outside, feeling the threat was closer. Lily's image began to fade. Be careful, 0. Don't let them catch it. He grabbed his backpack, stood up, and flashed his mind in his brain. Cooperation may be the way out, but he had to figure out his own way first. The door slid open and he stepped into the fog. 0 stepped out of the studio door, and the fog swept towards him like a group of living things, and the night was as deep as a shadow that was stretched. The neon lights on the street were uncertain, and the original bright ads suddenly twisted, turning into a blurred river, emerging from the concrete ground and surrounding his ankles. He blinked, feeling the time stretched, and every step seemed to be stepping on a shaking bridge. His shadow split into several under the light, and it was tangled with each other, as if mocking him. 0 took a deep breath and the noise in his brain became louder. That was the post-mortem of the memory virus, and he never stopped after the chip was unblocked. Diet, that's not true. He murmured, speeding up his pace and pushing the pedestrians on the road. They looked like blurry silhouettes, a device staring at themselves with a low head, and no one noticed his panic. The illusory river grew higher and higher, and the ice-cold touch climbed up his calves, and the laughter he heard came from the fog, mixed with a low buzz. With 0 touch implantable communication, press the hidden switch. Lily, where are you? This is messing around again. His voice gasped, scattering in the noise on the street. The projection formed in the air in front of her, and Lily's face floated from the mist, like a group of unstable light. Her eyes were flashing and swept across the surrounding scene. 0, take a deep breath. Your senses are being plagued by the rebirth. They spread out like viruses from the wafer, she said, his voice calm but urgent. 0 glanced at her projected fingers plodding through the air, trying to pull out a virtual barrier to block those distorted images. He rushed towards a narrow alley and slid on the slippery ground. The alley was darker, the damp air was covered with a faint metal smell, and the neon buzzing far away reverberated like a hum. The river vision followed him, now turning into a fog of confusion, trying to pull his line. He leaned against the wall and took out the temporary interferer. The small device slid out of his backpack like a flat metal piece. He quickly pressed the button, and a faint swelled up, the fog began to fade, and the image of the river slowly blurred into background noise. Why does this dead thing always bite people? Zero growled, feeling his head and brain clear. Lily's projection moved closer, and now it was more stable, like a light in the darkness. It's no coincidence, Zero. My memory has devoured me like this. We have to find the entry point together so that we don't get swallowed by them. She said, gently sweeping her hand, showing a string of simplified code images that are floating around his field. At the 0 point, although he was still suspicious, he made himself focus on her words. Okay, tell me how to calm down. He responded, and his voice softened. Deep in the alley, he felt that the threat was a little slow, and time seemed to slow down. Zero leaned against the wall and was questioning, if memory could invade like a virus, is technology helping or a trap? It promises to reorganize the past and make everything more confused. Am I or me, or are they just the slang of these codes? This thought stinged him like a sting, but he pushed it open and listened carefully to Lily's guidance. Zero, focus on the way to retaliation. They twist everything like viruses. I can help you stay calm. Lily continued, her projection approaching him, as if she was reaching out to calmly. Use an interferer to lock your sensory input, and I added a temporary replenishment to the system. Zero did as he pressed another switch on the device to his sun acupoint. A light vibration erupted in the air, the mist faded away, and the noise on the street changed back to the normal background sound. He relaxed his mouth and his shoulders relaxed slightly. Thank you, you always appear in time, he said, with a hint of gratitude in his language. They walked to the end of the alley, where there was a relatively safe corner hidden under the shadow of the old building. The neon lights came from afar, and the distortion faded away like a wave, but Zero knew that the threat was still there. We can't fight alone anymore. Cooperation is the only way out. Lily said, her image swaying slightly, as if she was urging this decision. Zero looked at her, feeling a little warm in his heart, and he also warned the shadow of the group, Adam Cleese and others would not let go easily. Okay, let's click. How to get out next, he asked, standing up straight, holding the dryer in his hand. The fog was wandering outside, and Zero felt a new determination arise. Lily's projection faded into a light line, and he took a deep breath and was about to take the next step. Zero walked into the safe house from the shadows in the alley, and the door was automatically locked behind him, and a faint air pressure sounded. The air in the basement is sticky, mixed with the heat emitted by the electronic circuit. The light is a few light blue lines, creating a blurred edge on the rough wall. The smoke in Xinjing City was still flying outside the air in the early morning, but the atmosphere here looked like a tight shell, sealing the virus gradually blue in his brain. Zero leaned against the wall and his breathing became heavier. He felt that the force was like a shaped wave, pushing from the depths of the brain. It was not a simple pain, but a pulling on the reality, making him want to stop and try to sort it out by himself. He walked towards the table in the middle, where there was a homemade memory stabilizer, a flat metal box with a slight blue light on the surface. He grabbed it and pressed the button on the side, and the device immediately made a low movement to try to make the virus. But the picture still emerged. In the experiment room of the founding group in his childhood, he saw himself standing next to a tall machine, with his fingers sticking a cold panel, and people in white robes were busy. He gritted his teeth and murmured, "This is not all, I have to find more." The virus twisted the memory, like a group of gangs entering the field. He did not collapse, but forced himself to focus on the edge of the details, that vague face, perhaps Adam Cleese, hidden in the shadow of the laboratory. Zero's heart is thrust. Technology should help us remember, but it always distorts the truth. If it can change memory, how can society still trust anything? He slid to the ground, holding the stamina in his hand, feeling the vibration of the device at his fingertips, but he didn't ask for help immediately. This time, he decided to dig more. Pressing another switch, a hidden scan light shot out from the stabilizer, swept over his arm, projecting a small piece of data that floated in the air. It was a file fragment about lilies, and a string of codes showed that she had contacted the creative group, not a simple cooperation, but a certain confidential transaction. Zero's breathing pause, he thought. She said she had been through darkness, but if she had also trespassed in, what should I do? Technology allowed us to connect and conceal the truth. This thought made him alert. He stood up, pressed the implanted communication, and the projection space formed in the corner, and the blue light spread softly, like a thin layer, but the movement inside was unstable, reminding him that this was just a temporary connection. Lily's image appeared, and she looked as real as before. Her eyes swept over his face. "Zero, are you fighting the virus again?" she asked, her voice as smooth as usual, with a hint of anxiety. At 0 point, the throat is dry. "Yes, but this time is different. I saw something about your past." He slid his fingers over the stabilizer, allowing the projection to display that data synchronously, and a simple code image appeared in the blue light. Lily's image shook slightly, and her hand reached towards his arm, which felt a sense of warmth. "Zero, don't rush to discuss. I have my history, but we are all trapped by these things," she said, her language turned soft, with a protective shield. Their conversation continues, and Zero Chase asks more. "Did you say you're swallowed by darkness? Is it related to the creation group? It feels like I've been walking in a trap." Lily's projection was stable, and she shared, "I used to live on these devices, but they will change you. I'm not confused, but not everything is simple. We have to cooperate to deal with greater threats." Zero heard, heartbroken, if technology can connect the world and destroy the relationship, what are we left? Thanks, but he also felt that the shadow of Adam Cruz was closer, like a group of undispersed mists. The blue light in the projection space dimmed a little, and he asked, "What's next for us? We can't just talk." Lily's image point, "Go check those clips, Zero. Don't wait for the virus to lead." Zero turned off the stabilizer, the projection faded into nothingness. He took a deep breath, walked towards the door, holding the device in his hand. The smoke from the outside was waiting for him, but he knew that this time he would not rely solely on others. Zero leaned against the wall of the basement, and the buzzing sound of the electronics in the air became even more harsh, like a group of cysts crawling on the skin. He blinked and felt that the things in his brain were in trouble again. This time, it was not like the usual flash, but a sensation suddenly pulled out the reminiscence, turning the foggy city in front of him into a group of trouble. He touched the flat memory device, with blue light on the surface. When he pressed it, it began to move, as if helping to suppress something, but it was useless. He slid to the ground. The floor was so cold that it was still holding the device. The screen flashed. "When I was a child, I was in the laboratory of the founding group." The machine was buzzing and the white-robed man came and went. He remembered that his fingers were stuck on the panel, and the discomfort struck his chest, thinking it was a game, but it turned out to be a nightmare. Adam Cialis' face appeared blurredly, standing in the shadow. His eyes were like a knife. Zero gritted his teeth, the visuals twisted, and the floor shaking. "Mom, this thing should have stabilized me, and it made me even more disturbed every time," he murmured, trying to take a deep breath, but the current in his brain kept jumping. Without waiting for the virus to completely suppress himself, he stood up and his fingers slid on the device, allowing a string of data to project into the air. "That's the code for childhood tests." The blue symbol jumps in midair. He stared at those things and thought to himself that technology should have helped to dig out the truth, but it always made everything look fake. If I could actively catch the virus instead of letting it control me, I might find a new thread. Suddenly, a light warning sound came from the door of the basement, like a remote siren's, coming from the smoke from the outside. Zero heartbeat is fast. This is new and has never happened before. He turned off the projection tightly, pressed the implanted communication device, and a blue light spread out, the virtual room formed in front of his eyes, and the neon light flashed like a mystery in a dream. Lily's image appeared immediately, and she sat there, her eyes swept over his face. "Zero, you're another ghost, is it the brain problem?" Her voice sounded calm, but it was urgent. He clicked his head, and the device in his hand was still buzzing. "Yeah, it pulled me back to those experiments. I saw Ahmad Cialis there, and felt him wiggle his feet." He slid his fingers, allowing the projection to synchronize the recollection clips, and the distorted images floated like a static storm in the blue light. "I don't want to wait for it to happen all the time. This time I want to try to control it. What new points do you have?" The outside alarm sounds not right. Lily's image moved forward and her eyebrows rose. "A warning? Maybe the group's scanner has passed. We have to hurry up. You say control the virus? It sounds dangerous. I've tried something like this before, and it took half a life to calm down." She paused, her eyes flashing through a shadow. "I'm like you, slamming through that darkness. Those tests are not casual, they turn us into tools. But if we don't cooperate, we will always be pressed by them." Zero slammed the head, and felt tightening my chest. "You're right, but every time I think about those things, I feel that technology is like a double-edged knife. It makes me see it, but also makes me wonder who I am. If my memory can be changed, what are we left?" He took a deep breath, pressed the device to stabilize the projection. "The deals you have with the Creation Group are really not hidden? We can't guess like this anymore, the police are getting closer." She smiled lightly, and the sound was bitter. "I'm not saying it all, because something is even more irritating. I live on those devices, but they change me too. We have to deal with Adam Cruz, not bite each other. Come on, I'll analyze it for you." Her image reached out, her virtual fingers slid through the blue light, like something invisible. Zero's watch hesitated for a moment, and a complex feeling surged in his heart. Technology connects us, just like a layer of glass, making people even more lonely. If it can save people and destroy everything, why am I still using it? But he knew that it was not the time to think about these things now. "Okay, let's try it," he said. His voice was low and his fingers were quick to let the code pass. The neon lights in the virtual room began to flash faster, and the alarm sounded from the outside, making everything tighter. Zero's sense of the virus slowly receded in the brain, but he knew this time was different, so he took the initiative to catch something. Lily's image calmed down. "We have to move, don't wait for them to come to the door." Her words made him stand up, holding the device in his hand, preparing the smoke on the outside. Zero stood up, the memory device in his hand lit up slightly, like a fine line swaying his fingers. The outside warning sounded like the roar of a wild beast in the distance. He glanced at Lily, and she pointed and the projection faded. He pushed open the door of the basement, and the damp air came over. They rushed into the streets of Xinjing City. Neon lights flashed in the rain, and the red and blue lights and shadows intersected into a group. "These unmanned machines are so tight that we have to use a dryer to press it." Zero gasped, his fingers slid over the gadget on his sleeve. The thing was flat, like a stone head. With a light press, he released a wave of invisible waves. On the street, no one was leaning down from the high floor, and their lights swept across the road, like a net being retracted. Zero pulled Lily into the narrow alley, the rain made the floor slippery, and their steps were slamming. Lily followed, her projection changed into a body, and her figure flashed in the darkness. "I used to sell my memory to survive. Now I'm on your side. This virus makes us face the same goal," she said calmly, her eyes raised and looked at the sky. The scanner in her hand knocked a few times, making a buzzing sound, slamming the surrounding signals. The unmanned body was turned around in the air, like a lost bird, and the sirens were circling in the alley. While chasing, Zero suddenly noticed a half-closed door. The lights there were unstable, as if they were the burrs of the urban system. He thought to himself that this dead technology was supposed to help, but it was always messed up, making us run like mice. Pulling Lily towards that side, he kicked the door open, and there was a small warehouse full of abandoned devices. As the unmanned machines approached, their engines sounded louder and faster. Using the memory device to connect to the warehouse's console, a beam of light swept over and moved some unmanned signals away. "There's something here to hold them up," he shouted. Lily looked around. "Good idea. Don't waste time," she said, her fingers flying fast on the scanner to increase interference. The two jumped onto the roof to avoid the beam of light, and the rain hit the face. Everything swayed like water. Zero's sense of the virus was stupid in his brain, but he forced himself to focus and thought to himself that this thing could save lives and might turn me into someone else. Part of the unmanned aircraft was misled and crashed into the building, making a sound of metal hitting, giving them a chance to breathe. They walked into the underground tunnel. The air became colder, and the mechanical buzzing came from far away, like a hidden breath. Zero breathing on the wall, and tapped the electronic door with the memory device, and it slid open with a click. They slid into the narrow space, and the moisture surrounded them. Lily leaned against the wall and tweaked her breath. "I have to say it clearly, the Creation Group gave me a deal. I uploaded some of my memory and switched to the stabilizer. It felt like I was losing a part of myself." Zero sat down. The device in his hand was still hot, and he stared at her. "Why didn't you talk earlier? I always think these things made us robots, and if we could buy it, what would we have left?" His words were a little excited, but Lily approached and touched the device lightly, adjusting for a few seconds, making the light steady. "I'm afraid you will leave, but now we have to rely on each other." Her movements were simple, and she felt a warm feeling, thinking, this technology connects us, but also makes trust fragile, like a layer of glass. Outside the tunnel, the sirens were still there, but it was safe here at the moment. Zero pulled Lily. "You can't stay for too long, come and find a place to hide." They rushed out from the other end and headed straight to the edge of the city. An automatic driving car parked there, with a low engine, like a wild beast on standby. The pocket device entered the door. It opened lightly, and they crawled in, and there was darkness inside, only hearing the sounds outside. Lily sat opposite her, holding the scanner. "What's next?" "Those things won't let go." Zero looked at her, his eyes furious. "Thank you for repairing this. Maybe we can get Adam Cleese together," he said, holding the device tightly with his fingers, feeling the virus was calm. The car slowly started and the engine sounded everything. Zero sat inside the automatic driving car. The car shook like a never-ending heart. The neon lights in Xinjing City blurred into a group in the rain, feeling the beams were always staring at us. The engine growled, and I checked the device tightly and found that the tracker was not just on the car, it seemed to be diamonding into my brain, and the memory virus was ready to move in the system. "This thing is not only following the cart, it's still making a fool in my head," Zero said, pointing his fingers at the cuff device, and the blue light flashed. Then he got on the cart loading system, cut off some signals, and the cart rushed to the underground tunnel. Lily stared at her scanner on the opposite side, the device buzzing lightly, and she tapped her fingers to increase the interference. "There's no one coming from above, but your virus looks even more difficult," she said, her voice steady and unable to hide her rush. "I'll come to fight outside, you have to calm yourself first." At the zenith, sweat slid down from his face, and his hands quickly planned on the virtual interface, diverting the route, and the tunnel lights flashed one by one, like a tired breathing. "This virus is not a simple tracking, it is retrieving my ideas and making me wonder which part of the memory is fake." The car rushes into the tunnel, the air becomes cold, and the mechanical pipes flash on the wall, like a living thing creeping. The sound of the unmanned machine came from above, like a remote noise. Zero's sense of head pain intensified, and the virus began to distort his vision. "It let me see the past clips, but not against each other," he said softly. Lily leaned over. "The line on the right, the signal is weak, we can get rid of them." Her words made Zero speak quietly. Their cooperation was like a team that had been tacitly compatible. He thought, this time it was not just about escaping, but about the virus that forced me to face the traitors inside him. In the narrow rest area, the car stopped, and Zero jumped out, and the device inside was still operating, and the lights of the patrol team swept through the tunnel, like a dog sniffing. The data police's heat sensor began to scan. Lily squatted down, activates the interferer, and waves of signals scattered, confusing their systems. Their equipment was cheated by us, she said, her voice low. Remember what I said last time? I didn't sell my memory, but made it change shape, and now you're also hit. Zero took a deep breath, his fingers stopped on the device, thinking, if the virus can modify the brain, then am I still me? It's not the machine chasing us, it's the one I'm biting in the past. They walked into the side alley, and used devices to release the virus version, leading the patrol team to a dead end, where the roads there would short-circuit. This will keep them busy, Zero said, running around to adjust the signal. The patrol team shouts mixed with the electronic policeman, and Lily followed him. I gave up my memory at that time to survive, but now seeing you slamming, I think we have to remove the system together. Her words made Zero stop. He was breathing on the wall, thinking that the virus not only threatens the body, it allows me to see the most vulnerable parts of human nature. Are we just data? Arriving at the entrance to the center of the abandonment data, the angular eclipse is flying in the air, and the lights are flashing like tired eyes. Zero immediately operates the device, raises the virtual wall and blocks the external signal. It's stable here, he said. Lily slid around and adjusts the scanner to monitor abnormalities. You handle it faster than I think, she said, touching his arm lightly. With Zero turn, a silence flashes through the mind. The technology in this world is a trap, but with her, it feels less empty. The sirens were still far away, but they stood up and prepared for the next step. Zero and Lily slammed into the entrance to the center of the scrap data, and when the door was locked, the sirens on the outside became louder, like an approaching shout. They took a deep breath and tried to calm the picture. The light in the room was dim and the projection screen buzzed, like a machine was breathing. Lily took out the memory stabilizer from her backpack, pressed the switch, and the blue light swept through the air, pulled out a net light, and tried to make the interference in the room. I can hold them here for a while, Lily said, wiping the sweat from her head, but we have to hurry up. At the juncture, the virus in his brain began to cause trouble again, and he felt the vision swaying, as if the screen was stuck. He grabbed the stabilizer and tried to operate it himself, pressed it, and his fingers slid on the beam, allowing the light to lock his head. I have to try this, he said, can't let it control me anymore. Lily looked at him, her eyes narrowed. Why do you believe me? She asked, her voice light like ears. I was the subject of the test of the founding group. They stole everything I had with memory reconstruction, including the person I love. She paused, adjusting the stabilizer, allowing the blue light to sweep more stably across the Zero surroundings. Zero sensed that the virus is retreating, and a vague childhood clip appears: a park, but not against each other, like someone has annoyed the file. Because you've seen it clearly, he responded, his hand holding the device trembling slightly. They might have stuffed things into my brain long ago, and I don't want to be moved to wait any longer. The sirens came from outside the door, and became even more urgent, as if the pursuers were approaching. Lily leaned against the projection screen, and the light and shadow on the screen jumped, like a silly video. I thought joining them would change the world, she said. They just wanted to control everyone with technology. I lost him, and he tried to resist, and it became their experience. Zero heard, thinking in his heart that this technology was supposed to help, but it turned out to be like a snail that would hold us around, making people even more alone. The buzzing sound of the projection screen became harsh, and he quickly operated the stabilizer to strengthen the beam and tried to remove virus fragments in the picture. I feel this way, too, he said. Every time I have a headache, I don't know which memories are real and which are fake. Their conversation blew in the dark room, and the blue light shone out Lily's tired face. We can't just stay that way, she said. We have to find the Garden of Eden and reverse the virus, otherwise we will always be their plaything. Zero put the stabilization back on her hand and felt a little refreshed. Okay, let me help you, he said, but we have to stop the guys outside first. He stood up and walked towards the door, listening to the sirens, thinking, if technology can save people and destroy people, what are we left? Lily followed, reached out and touched his arm. Go together. They moved to the exit behind the projection screen, and the air in the room was tight, like a string waiting to explode. Zero took a deep breath and pushed open the hidden door. Zero pushed open the hidden door, and they immediately fell into the entrance of the data tunnel. The dazzling light shone, and the surrounding servers lined up like striking pillars, making a continuous buzzing sound. The air was flashing with blue-green light, and the sirens approached from behind, like the roar of pursuers. "Go on, we have to make their systems mutate," Zero said, taking out the encryption chip from his pocket and pressing the switch. The chip spreads a thin and foggy interface in the palm of his palm. His fingers slide quickly, input commands, and create multiple false identity signals. These signals scatter like lenses, leading the pursuer's AI to start tracking for missed targets. It looks good. No one starts to turn around. Lily checks the projection on the hand ring and jumps to show the enemy's position. "Your plan works, but don't be too early," she said. Her language was rushing, adjusting the light line and sweeping over the wall, marking the road of no one. "Be careful, they are locking us." She grabbed Zero's arm and pointed to the narrow passage ahead. The impact of the Zero-sensing virus is still wandering in the brain, but he focuses on the operation interface to dissipate false signals. Suddenly, the hand trembled, and an unexpected wave came from inside him, remembering that the virus accidentally entered the tunnel system. The server begins to flash more intensely, and the surrounding projection distorts into a messy image, like a scene of data storm. "Don't die, the virus affects here," he whispered and tried to keep the interface calm. "What's the situation?" Lily asked, staring at the changes around her. The projection jumped, and the unmanned machine hit the virtual barrier. She responded quickly, used this twist. She activated the hand ring, released a wave of interference signals, and tried to make the virus spread. "We have to control it together and don't let it harm us." Zero's heart sank. If the memory virus can change the system, then what is credible about his own past? He asked under the pressure of his head, and his fingertips plodded over the interface, and forced the reset of some servers. "Okay, we'll guide them into the road," he said, his voice calming, feeling his chest tightening. He glanced at Lily, her movements were flowing like a familiar teammate. The tunnel was deeper, the noise became more harsh and the red scanner blew the wall. The failure caused by the virus causes the AI to react and the unmanned machine begins to hit the projection barrier. "They're stuck," Lily said, relaxing her mouth, but her fingers tightly shaking the ring. "You saved us again this time." "Just air," Zero responded, gasping for adjustment of the device. Memories flashed through the brain, those blurry childhood scenes. He thought, if technology could rewrite everything, what would be left of that person? "I always think those memories are not right," he said lightly, his eyes shifting to Lily. She stopped and touched his shoulder. "I understand. I tried to get into the founding group and wanted to save him, but nothing was left." Her words made the tunnel buzz far away. "But now, we're here, it's not the weather." They rushed forward and walked up the metal floor. The virus failure caused the enemy team to fall into data chaos, and the sound of the unmanned sound went far away. Zero confirmed that the interface was stable. "Let's go." Lily pointed her head, followed his steps, and leaned over her shoulder slightly. Zero thought that technology connects the world, making people even more lonely, but at this moment, he felt the real connection. Zero took a deep breath and pricked along the tunnel. The blue-green light twisted and twisted on the wall, like a splash of water. He grabbed Lily's wrist and flicked into the narrow passage. The virtual barrier rolled open like a lens, and the surroundings turned into a group of reflective messes. "These barriers change by themselves, and we have to hurry up," he said. His fingers quickly slid over the arm device, injecting a blow-up line to make the system start to make a mistake. Lily stared at her hand, and the picture of the enemy's position jumped out, and the red spots stumbled in the mystery. "How did you make it like this?" she asked, pressing down her voice. Her eyes swept over the flashes. The buzzing sound of the unmanned machine approached, like a remote car engine. She tightly adjusted the hand ring and released a wave of interference, making the barrier thicker. Okay, then they should slow down. Zero-focused operation of the device, pressing the hidden button with your fingers, the reorganizer suddenly reacted excessively, and an unexpected reverberation wave bounced back, touching the self-reacting of AI. The unmanned aircraft began to attack each other, rather than chasing them, and the noise of metal crashing burst out in the air. "Oh no, it's coming back," he said, feeling the device beating slightly on his arm, like a heartbeat. The projected image is distorted into a group of malfunctions, and the unmanned machine crashes into the virtual wall, sparking all over the place. Lily relied on her projection and his device were connected to the network, and the data began to be exchanged. "Your move is so fierce, but will it bite back?" she asked, her lingering and her shoulders touching him slightly. "I've never seen this kind of reversal. At the beginning, I was confused in my heart. This technology was supposed to help, but it was like a wild beast. If AI could be so agitated, could humans still control it?" He pressed down on this thought and continued to move forward. "Keep close, your data can stabilize it." They turn into another channel, and the virtual mirror reflects repeated images, making the space look infinitely large. Lily grabbed his arm. "Wait, I see a groove, we can hide in." They slid into the dim server groove, with only a low buzz inside, like a tired machine gasping. The projection faded away, and the surrounding area became quiet. In the groove, Lily took a few deep breaths, and her fingers moved on the ring to adjust the settings. "The last time I entered the creative group, I found a hidden back door that I didn't put," she said, her voice becoming low. "Maybe an internal traitor helped us open the way." She glanced at him. "What do you think?" "We are not alone." Zero sat down against the wall and helped her to correct the device to make the road more stable. "It makes sense," he said. His brains quickly turned. If insiders turned against each other, this technology war is not only for them, but for a more complicated game. He stretched out his hand and touched her hand gently. "Come on, let me help you adjust it, this will make the backlash last for a while." Lily held his hand. "You made me feel less afraid," she said, her eyes looking straight at him. "In this pile of machines, people can rely on people." Inside, Zero thought that this technology could connect the world and cut everything. It saved us once, and might destroy us next time. He stood up and pulled her up. "Let's go, don't waste time." They leave the groove, return to the passage, and the projection starts to flash again. The unmanned group killed themselves in front of them, and the confusion of AI made them collided into a group, and the fire illuminated the tunnel. "Look, they started fighting themselves," Lily said, her pace quickening and her eyes lit up. Zero confirmed that the device was fine, pointing in the direction of the exit. "Let's push out." They ran along the passage, thumping on the floor. The siren was weaker, but he knew that the monitoring of the founding group was still there. Lily kept up with his speed, their arms scrubbed by, and at that moment, he felt a new tacit understanding. Zero and Lily entered the entrance of the underground data warehouse, and closed with a click behind them. The air suddenly became heavy, filled with the smell and buzzing sound of the old electronic machine, making people breathless. They leaned against the wall and gasped, and the red lights above were like tired eyes flashing, making the surroundings look like they were shaking underwater. "I'm always taking a breath here," Zero said. His eyes swept over the servers, and the big guys were like sleepy giants, flashing in a glimmer of light. Lily pointed at her head and raised her hand to look at her hand. The thing showed that the surrounding signal was still jumping. "It feels stable than outside, at least for a while," she said in a low voice, as if she was afraid of being surprised and hiding something. Her fingers touched the sensor on the wall, and a slight vibration climbed up to her arm. The file system was about to start, and the screen lighted up in front of them, and the data fell like it was raining. Zero stretched out his arm and clicked on his memory stabilizer, which heated up slightly on his wrist, making the system twitch freely. "The file is running away," he said, staring at the emerging icons. As soon as the file was unblocked, the air around seemed to be tightened, and the projections suddenly opened around them, showing the manipulation records of the creative group. Lily approached and pointed at a string of codes. "This is their memory reshaping thing," she said, her voice was excited and alert. They use brain waves as toys and fuck them at will. Zero's fingers plotted in the air, adjusting the projection to let more information emerge. I'll dig deeper, he said, keeping an eye on the entrance. Lily stepped back and stood by. I look outward, you're focused, she said, bringing them closer together, and the action was like instinct. I thought that these technologies should allow us to be free, and the result was just like a chain this time. It felt like it wasn't just a machine, but something darker was being controlled. When the projection expanded, showing the group's virus origin, those diary words were like ghosts flying out, and he took a deep breath, pressing down on the inappropriate feeling. There are more dirty things here, he said, pointing to a bunch of files. Lily looked at her eyes. They used the virus as a weapon to test how much the human brain can withstand. It's not just a mistake, it's a terrible thing. She turned around. Zero, can we use this counterattack? They moved deep into the warehouse, where the servers formed a group. The wires were like numbness, and the blue light jumped on their faces. Zero squatted down and connected to the system. His device buzzed lightly, and the data began to flow. Suddenly, an unforeseen interaction system jumped out, like a hidden AI guardian, asking them whether they wanted to sell this information, a moral trap. Don't die, this is asking us if we want to wipe everything off. Zero said, his fingers stopped in the air, and his face was unrestrained. Lily leaned over her waist and touched him with her shoulders. If we sell, they will always hide. If we don't sell, the group may catch up. What do you think? Zero's heart is full of trepidation. Technology was originally going to save people, but it turned into this double-faced knife. If we press it, will we be playing with the same magic as them? He slammed his head and tried to calm down. We can't be them, he said. Click quickly and choose to copy data rather than destroy. The projection lights up more experiment details, and the truths are like stinging into the brain. Viruses are designed to erase strangers. Lily reads with her eyebrows tightly locked. They turn people into empty shells, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Zero, you are not alone. In this cold world, you are my only truth. The fantasy was like a tide. Zero vision was distorted, the warehouse space was stretched, the surroundings were buzzing into repellent whispers, those memory fragments flashed, and he saw the group going through the process of human nature, and people's faces dissipated like smoke. The virus is making a fool of itself. He gasped and pressed his head. Lily immediately hugged him. Take a deep breath, I'm here. She said, pulling him back to his senses. I've encountered this before. Try to forget the past, but you let me remember those things. Zero grabbed her hand and thought, if the memory could be stolen, what's the truth left to us? Adam Kurz, who is friendly on the surface, must have hidden a knife below. Who can we believe? They supported each other and walked towards the exit. Lily held his hand and walked calmly. Zero felt her body warm, like a warm current, making him straight. We have to take this out, he said, pointing to the copied data. Her eyes locked him. Yes, face it together, don't let them control it. They stepped out of the shadows, and the sound of the warehouse faded away. They walked into the tunnel from the exit of the underground database, and the darkness suddenly filled the noise behind them. Zero walked in front, and the device on his hand lit up slightly, illuminating the narrow road ahead. It feels weird here, Zero said, sounding leaping across the wall. It seems like someone is watching us. Lily followed behind her, her eyes swept around. She placed her hand on the toolkit at her waist and quickly checked the encrypted wafer. Yes, I always think something is waiting to jump out. Suddenly, an invisible scan passed them, and Zero's wrist device began to vibrate. The red light flashed, and a fake reverberation rushed into his brain. He stood in the sun and chatted with a stranger, but it felt unmatched, as if someone had forced him into it. Wait, that's not true. Zero stopped and rubbed his head. Someone is playing with us. Is it the group's handle? Lily asked. She leaned forward and touched his arm lightly, but kept a little distance. She scanned the surroundings. I saw the signal jumping, as if someone was sending a message from outside. He opened his device at Zero, and the data floated into a string of symbols in the air. Look at this, he said. They are attacking the tunnel with real-time messages, trying to mess with our systems. The data flowed like water, and Lily looked closer. Damn it, they want to distract us. Her words made Zero a little sober, and he thought to himself, if these messages could invade at will, what privacy can we keep? But he didn't say the exit, he just adjusted the device and tried to get rid of the interference. They continued to move forward, the air deep in the tunnel became colder, and the sound of their feet was rumbling inside. The sealed door appears in front, like an invisible wall. Lily squatted down and joined her hacking tools, and the screen lit up in front of her eyes. There's a problem here, she said, not a simple lock, but also a program of chaotic moral tests. Her fingers flew fast, and her fingertips slid across the virtual interface. With each unplugged, the tunnel amplified their voices, first with Zero breaths, then became vague whispers. Did you hear it? That sound is digging my brain, Zero said, relying on the wall to provide memorization threads. I remember a similar code, seen from the last time I copied the data. Lily pointed, okay, let's try together. Just as she was operating, an unexpected message jumped out from an obscene allies in the tunnel. An anonymous transmission said, don't give up, the answer is in your link. Zero was stunned for a moment. Who did this? It might be a loophole in the system, Lily answered, her hand pausing, but it made me think that when I gave up my family, I thought it was over, and those memories were still chasing me. Her voice was calm, but her eyes flashed. Zero looked at her. We are all like this, right? Let's go with these things in my back. Inside, he thought, if technology could connect us with messages, why would it make people more isolated? They cooperated, and the Zero line opened and a gap appeared. As the tunnel narrows, the passage approaches, the data storm suddenly explodes, like a storm rolling up the surrounding data. The real-time attack messages are mixed in the storm and try to delete their files. Bastard, they're getting fuel from outside. Lily shouted, grabbing Zero's arm and snatching the fragments coming from the fur. Zero concentration, the operating device moves the data. I have to calm down, he said, his fingertips plotting in the air, and the projection adjusts quickly. The stormy pressure distorts the air, and the blue light flashes like a blade. Stay. We're almost here. Lily shouted, her movements coordinatingly protecting them. Zero's sense of her hand transmitted power. He thought that this technological attack not only destroyed the data, but also tested the bottom line of human nature. The wind was weak, and they reached the entrance. Zero stood calmly. I'm not saving you, he said, but I remember your words, there is still real. Lily pointed at the head and pulled him away. They walked from the tunnel into the entrance hall, and the air was as shaking as the heart was beating, and the blue light flew away, making the surroundings a mess. Zero walked in front, holding the device in his hand, feeling it was slightly hot. This place feels alive, staring at us, he said, his eyes sweeping over those blue lights. Lily slammed him, her shoulders tightly, and her fingers hit the tool at her waist. Those lights are moving, she said, as if they are drawing a way out. The blue lights began to gather, pulling out a line on the floor like a spider net, turning their eyes into a messy mist. Zero loading device pulls out data from the founding group's files, and those symbols float in the air like bubbles. He lightly puts them on the core of the light. I have to find out the rules, he said softly, data instantly blending into the light curtain, making a short walk stable. Suddenly, the floor buzzed and gas came out of the gap, like a sweet smoke slid straight into the nostrils. Zero coughed, and some old pictures flashed through my brain, the streets of my childhood, and figures swayed. Diet, this thing has dug up all the old things in my brain, he said, his voice firmly calming down. Lily shook her waist and swept her gas, and pulled her hands on the virtual interface. It's fake, try to distract us from our attention, she responded, her gas concentration immediately weakened. She made Zero concentrate, he thought, this gas turned over everything hidden, technology is just like a stealing your peace. They moved forward, the blue light became more complex, and the walls swayed like water, projecting a twisted shadow. Lily grabbed Zero's hand and pulled him to stand firm. I've never told anyone, she opened her mouth, her eyes locked on his face, this is swaying me like a chain. Zero felt her hand was hot, and a current was like a gust of current, and he asked in his heart, why do these technologies always work through past affairs? Is it reminding us that human nature has never changed? I thought I could get rid of them by deleting my memory, he said. That stuff always pops up, like a snail. The light curtain begins to shake, and the gas rolls up whirlpools, making the image more confused. Lily took a deep breath. The barrier requires us to spit out the hidden things before we can pass. Zero's fingers quickly moved on the device, trying to project the picture, but the images in his brain became clearer and clearer. In an accident in childhood, his family suddenly disappeared, leaving a big hole. Okay, he said, the accident made me forget about the decoration, but it never went far. Lily's eyes flashed. I left my family because they were caught by the group, she said, thinking that running away would protect them, and it only made me even more alone. The virtual space accelerates the vibration, and the time feels like a string pulling. Zero held her hand tightly and felt her heartbeat. We'll deal with these together, she said lightly, or maybe we can find that real Eden. His heart flipped. Why does the memory always drag us down if we can open the way as a key? Technology allows us to play with it, but we can't get rid of its burden. He adjusted the device, and the data flow ran around the light curtain, and a crack slowly opened. At this moment, the floor sank, and a big hole was like a mouth that was about to swallow them. Zero reaction quickly, fingertips are plodding in the air, and the device releases blue light to calm the ground. Catch me, he shouted. Lily grabbed his arm and pushed the ground hard. Cold, we can get past. They pulled closer, gas dissipated, and the light curtain flashed. Zero felt her strength like support. He thought, this kind of cooperation not only eliminated the trap, but also repaired his own cracks. He pulled her forward and walked up in the blue light. They held their hands and pulled out of the blue light palace, slid their feet over the smooth metal floor, and directly into a semicircular projection platform. The air was buzzing, like someone humming a song in a low voice, and the blue-purple light flashed around, making people think it was calm here, but they always felt that something was waiting. Zero relaxed Lily's hand and felt the device in the palm of her palm moving slightly. It's weird here, he said, his eyes swept through the jumping projections. It seems to be playing something, wait for us to step in. The device suddenly lit up, and a translucent light curtain popped out from his fingers, instantly surrounding them. When an inverted count pops up from the light curtain, the water begins to shrink from 30 seconds, and every second it follows a low bird, like a heartbroken door. Zero felt a pulling force pulled him into another world. He blinked, and his eyes turned into a bright street. The sun was shining on the green trees. The crowd came and went. He stood there himself, without any pain, as if he had never happened in the past. What's going on? He murmured, his voice rumbling in his virtual sensation, like an echo leaping in his brain. Lily stood beside her, putting her hands on his shoulder. Her breathing was a little quick, but she could hear it very calmly. Zero, this thing is just fake, she said, staring at him. It will steal your thing, like I did, leaving only a lot of holes. Her words brought him back to his senses. The virtual streets began to sway, and black shadows appeared around him. Those were his memories, childhood accidents. Family disappeared in front of him, and a vague voice calling his name. The inverter approached 20 seconds, and the pressure came like a heat wave. Zero tried to calm the light curtain and quickly plant the fingers in the air, but the images refused to stop. At this moment, something new appeared in the virtual space. A blurry figure flashed far away, like Adam Cleese, his eyes flashing with cold light. Do you think you can escape? The sound of the figure came, as if it was coming out of the loudspeaker, mingling in the heartbeat. Zero was surprised in his heart. This was not the recollection in the forecast, but the external failure, making everything even more difficult. He turned to look at Lily's face. Her expression changed a little, as if she was hiding something secret. I never told you, she said, his voice trembling slightly. When I deleted my memories, I wasn't alone. I saw him, Adam. He used the system to monitor us. Her words were like a heavy blow, Zero's brain buzzing, and he thought, this technology would have allowed us to be free, but became a monitoring trap, and people would never get rid of it. the virtual paradise began to collapse, the bright streets twisted into dark fragments, and in the countdown was only 10 seconds left, the figures of Yaquan were getting closer and closer, as if they were about to catch people. Zero felt like his chest was pulled by current, and he thought to himself, if this system could upload everything, then are we still humans? Just the data jumps in the machine? This may be able to cultivate the world well, but it may also make us become puppets, and even a little real relationship is gone. Lily leaned closer. Zero, you heard me, she continued. I thought it would be easy to remove those things, but they turned into his weapons instead. Do you really want this illusion to control you? Her hand was a little hot, as if she reminded him that there was a real existence. He took a deep breath and tried to push the images open, and his fingers quickly clicked on the light curtain to adjust the movement, but the atom figure still approached, bringing an urgent pressure. Zero said, Lily, I understand. This is not just a matter of whether to escape or not, it is us who have to fight this. His voice was covered with sand, and the countdown jumped to 5 seconds. The virtual space dissipated like a smoke, and the real core control room slowly took shape. Lily pointed at the head. Don't let it win, she replied lightly, pulling his hand tightly. The light curtain faded, and the blue-purple light flashed around them, and Zero's sense of a force was coming from her. His heartbeat sank, but he was still beating, ready to face the next step. The sound of the outside world swept in slightly, and he held her hand and took a step forward. Zero station is stable, and the remaining light images in the virtual space are scattered like a scent, leaving only the blue and purple light in the core control room moving. He felt Lily's hand still holding his, warmth coming from his fingertips, making him blink and try to shake off the pulling feeling. In the room, a translucent projection platform floated in the air, and the data flow meandered on the wall like a thin thread, and a faint sensation began to appear along the edges, as if the system itself was also hesitating. Zero, you're trapped in again, aren't you? Lily's voice came from his side. This time it was not calm, but a little bit of fire. She relaxed his hand, stepped to the projection platform, and with a light stroke of her finger, she let a string of data images expand in front of her eyes. Every time, you think you can forget the trouble by sinking into those lights and shadows, but in fact, you are just hiding. Zero was stunned for a moment, and his brain was recovering from his phantom. The scene he saw was originally perfect, a street shining with sunshine, people walked by with smiles, without the shadow of the past. But those images began to twist, and the pieces of reminiscence fell from the edge like falling leaves. He thought to himself, these fake pictures look good, but they are not real at all, they are just stealing the rest of my life. He slammed his head and turned to Lily. I'm not hiding, he said. I just want to see what the system promises. The lights and shadows made me feel that we might be able to take away everything. The light on the projection platform suddenly became brighter, and the data flow accelerated, as if responding to his words. Lily didn't let her hand swipe over the interface, allowing a blurry image to spread behind her. It was her own memory, a blurry family scene, with a smile on her head, but also a shadow of loss. Then look at this, she said. I tried to remove the painful parts, and what happened? It's all empty. I don't want us to be like that, Zero. You always want to use these things to cultivate the world, but they will make us forget why we're here. The buzzing sound in the room was augmenting their conflicts. Zero's sense of a pressure flowing from all directions. He instinctively wanted to touch the interface again and try to calm the jumping data. Lily, wait, he said, fingers sank in the air. If we don't try, we'll never know. The system said that this gives freedom, why can't you believe it once? But she slammed her head, staring at him with a determined look. Freedom? That's fake, Zero. Think about it, if you upload your memory, what are we left? It's just some cold files waiting to be deleted. Her words pierced into his chest like a slight shot, causing him to stop. At this moment, the meter pops up from the projection platform, and the numbers start to count down in 20 seconds, and each jump makes the blue and purple light flash more urgent. The air in the room began to shake, and a new crack appeared on the panel on the wall, as if the system was resisting them. Zero Mind had a flash of thought, this technology should have saved the enemy, but now it is like a trap, swallowing us. He grabbed Lily's arm. We'll have to hurry, he said, it's going to break. Lily didn't wait for him to explain it more. She took a step forward, and made a plot on the interface with her fingers, touching a hidden sequence. The projection platform swayed, and the data flowed like a wave, and a blurred figure, the image of Adam Clares, suddenly emerged from the light curtain, and the sound mixed with the noise. Do you think you can escape? This system belongs to me. Zero's fist was tight. He didn't expect this turn, and the system actually counterattacked at this time. Die, he murmured, it's monitoring us. Lily held his hand, not retracting. Then let it see the ghost, she said. We make our own decisions. The number jumped to 10 seconds, and the vibration in the room increased, and the floor was slightly slanted. He took a deep breath, and quickly planted his hand in the air, trying to cut the core point. But Lily stuck in front of him and pressed another virtual switch to make the data flow reverse. Zero, listen to me, she said, we destroyed it together, don't let it control us. Her voice calmed down his thoughts, and he pointed, and the two of them acted at the same time. The projection platform began to shatter, and the light and image smoke dissipated. In 5 seconds, Zero pulled Lily backwards, feeling the heat flowing from his fingers. The buzz in the room was weak, and his heart was still beating violently, but this time it was for her. The sound of the outside world came in, and he turned his head and looked at her, his eyes flashing with determination. Zero pulled out of the door of the core control room, and the vibrating echo was still rumbling behind him. He took Lily's hand, but this time he let it go, instead of signaling her to follow with his eyes. The neon lights on the street are like lines blown by the wind, twisting into ripples in the air. Those holographic advertisements have no smooth framework and become a group of chaotic images. The people rushed around, and some people stopped to stare at the projection on their hands, and their eyes captured the sudden original memory, a scene in the factory, a child's cry, as if the virus was spreading in the city. Those ads are collapsing, Zero shouted, avoiding an emergency stopping float, pointing to the flashing red lights in the air. Look, the system is reorganizing. Lily pointed at the head, and she glanced at the surroundings, her eyes locked on a group of people who circled in circles and passed on blurry images on each other. It's time, she said. Everyone began to remember the days when they were deleted. The shouts on the street rose and fell, and a young woman started to work, projecting a scene of a rich party, and the waste and bullying inside made people roar. Suddenly, a police report came from afar and saw a patrol car flashing on the street corner, probably because of Adam Claus's force, those cars with newly encrypted signals trying to block broadcasts. Zero pulled Lily to the high stairs, which was located on the temporary viewing platform, and he stood gasping and looked down at the entire street. The data streaming stings from his chips, reminding him that the global network is disintegrating, level-wise like a pile of broken parts being resplied. They are awake, he said, but those big guys won't sit and wait. Lily approached, her shoulders touching him, her eyes like a steady light. Zero, we have to go, Adam's minions may have locked us. She pointed to the end of the street, with several figures moving in the shadows, holding the suppressor in her hands, trying to make the leaking memory. They walked into a narrow alleyway, and neon light jumped on the wall, like a tired fighting. The alley is more peaceful, and the noise from the distance turns into a blurred background. Zero leaned against the wall and took a deep breath, and he felt his heartbeat still accelerating. I thought this technology would only deepen the gap, he thought, but now it makes everyone see the truth, but it also brings more trouble. Lily turned to him, her eyes soft and firm. Zero, thank you for taking me out of that system, she murmured, not because of those machines, but because of ourselves. At the beginning of the night, his hand was lifted up and stopped beside her shoulder, but he didn't touch it, but was just there, as if he was confirming the reality of this moment. We're not alone, he said. Those memories are connecting everyone, but I will want to cut it off. Outside the lane, the streets began to form teams, some shared stories, some shouted slogans, and a new police report sounded like a systems reversal. Lily pulled his eyes. We have to continue, she added, don't let them manipulate us again. Zero's sense of warmth rose from his chest. He thought, this technology should have been a tool, but turned into a double-blade knife, it can illuminate the past and may also ignite new hatred. But here, facing Lily, he knew that this was not just a program code, but a connection between people. He turned around and walked towards the alley. His steps were steady, Lily followed, their breaths mingling in the night. The lights on the street reflected a change of shadows, and he focused on the rhythm beside her and no longer looked back.